The Santo Spirito neighborhood is a fitting home for American jeweler Kellie Riggs' vibrant workspace. Many of her inventive, often conceptual pieces are directly inspired by Italian art and architecture and by those Florentine traditions that she helps keep alive.
I've inherited this obsession with Italy from my dad. We're not Italian at all. I don't know where it came from, but we used to come to Italy a lot as a family. My mom's a flight attendant, so it's easy to get over here, and so every family vacation we ever had was to Italy. I did my undergrad at RISD in jewelry and metalsmithing, and I did a 5-month-long independent study program in Rome, but frequently I was coming back here. And then after that, I got a Fulbright and I wrote half the project so I could be here learning engraving actually. So I've been in Italy on and off for the last almost 6 years, half in Rome and half in Florence. Being in Italy studying really changed everything for me, so it's constantly been a huge influence of mine. At first, during my undergrad, I was really inspired by Italian Renaissance and Baroque architecture, and so I was doing a lot of sort of translating that into wearable pieces for the body, thinking about the body as an architectural space. That was kind of where it started. Well, before that, actually, it started, I tried to create like a design project based on these elements I was finding in interiors of churches and stuff like that. So it's constantly been about being here and working from the environment, you know, being in the space instead of like through a book. Florence in particular is super accessible. I've been really lucky and have met a lot of really interesting people sort of trying to keep this artisanal thing alive, and it's just sort of a natural thing to have going on. It's not like a revival, it's really just something that people do here. And so, yeah, just this sort of locality that you can find and meet people who've done things that like their parents have done, their grandparents have done. And then more specifically, the space that I work in, we're 6 artists, goldsmiths, designers, and Margherita, who owns the space, she's Florentine, and so this space is really part of the neighborhood. Although it is accessible here to see these really amazing things that artists are doing, it's another thing to then just sort of create a real community, a social community. And so that I'm working on, if I can be honest about it. I specifically chose to come here because there's really amazing jewelry schools here, but I chose to learn hand engraving. That was really important for me, is to learn a traditional technique, and then with the idea of trying to use it in contemporary ways in my work. And so that was really important. So I barely spoke Italian at the time, but my teacher was Italian, so it was like a 2-for-1 lesson. I got an Italian lesson while I got an engraving lesson, and so I did that for almost a year, which was really exciting. And I have this sort of more design-based side, more like, let's say, sellable jewelry that people understand, and then I do some really weird conceptual stuff, working with like biblical imagery and rosaries and things. That's also a total product of being in Italy, not necessarily Florence, but just like being here and being sort of inundated all the time with Catholicism and the Madonna and everything. So that's been a real obsession of mine in the last couple of years.